You thought it was your voice. It was their control. What if I told you that the thoughts you trust the most might be the ones that keep you the most limited? That the voice in your head, the one that says you're not ready, you're not enough, be realistic, isn't the voice of truth but the echo of someone else's fear? The loudest voice in your mind might be the quietest form of control. It doesn't yell. It doesn't threaten. It whispers, repeats, disguises itself as logic, as humility, as being smart, spiritual, self-aware. And slowly, it turns your intuition into hesitation, your creativity into caution, your soul into silence. This voice doesn't sound like an enemy. It sounds familiar. It sounds like home, but only because you've been breathing it in for years, mistaking it for your own. Pause now and ask yourself, truly ask, who's speaking inside your head when you hold yourself back? Whose approval are you still chasing? Whose rules are you still following? Whose disappointment are you still trying to avoid? Because what we're really talking about isn't thought. It's identity, not the kind you choose, the kind you inherit, absorb, perform, until you believe it was yours all along. You've been carrying a script you didn't write. Living a life filtered through someone else's perception of who you're supposed to be. And that's where it begins, the fragmentation. The moment you stop asking, does this voice empower me or does it shrink me? Today, we begin to peel that voice apart, to reveal what's yours and what was installed, to feel deeply, honestly, the difference between inner knowing and mental conditioning. Because the return to yourself doesn't start with silence. It starts with questioning the noise. And in the next section, we'll go right into the origin of that noise, how the inner critic was installed in your system, not born in your soul. Let's go there together. The inner critic was installed, not born. You weren't born doubting yourself. That came later, and it didn't come from nowhere. It was carefully taught. Before you had the words to explain how you felt, someone else's words started shaping what you were allowed to feel. Before you had the tools to know your truth, you were handed a manual that told you what to hide. This inner critic that echoes inside you, it didn't emerge from your soul. It was installed. And like any installed system, it runs by default. Until you start noticing the program. Let me take you back to the first time you flinched when expressing something real. Maybe you were excited, and they told you to calm down. Maybe you were angry, and they called you dramatic. Maybe you were honest, and they said you were being rude, difficult, ungrateful, and just like that, your nervous system took a note. Not mentally, vibrationally. It registered, this part of me isn't safe here. I need to adjust to survive. That adjustment, it's now the voice in your head that interrupts your joy, the hesitation before you speak, the tension in your chest when you begin to feel something too deeply. You learned to shrink before you ever had a chance to expand. And here's the thing most people miss. This programming isn't just personal. It's generational. It's cultural. It's the collective weight of ancestral trauma and societal conditioning, repackaged as your inner voice. You've seen it before. You just didn't know how to read it. And it shows up everywhere. It's the feeling of guilt when you finally rest, the fear of being too much when you're just being real, the shame of wanting more than survival. But what if the most powerful truth was hiding where you never thought to look? Because the critic isn't just mean, it's protective. It was built to keep you safe in environments that punished your truth. It's not your enemy, it's your history. But here's the shift. Your history doesn't get to decide your future, and protection is not the same as alignment. Pause for a moment. Breathe. Feel the difference between the voice that shrinks you and the one that frees you. They don't sound the same. They don't feel the same. And only one of them is truly yours. Let's keep going, because now that we've exposed how the critic was installed, we need to explore the deeper layer. The voice that sounds rational, even wise, but is actually a script of control disguised as logic. In the next section, we'll unpack the voice that tells you to be realistic and why it may be the most dangerous voice of all. Be careful with the voice that says, "Be realistic." It might be a script from the Matrix. Be realistic. It sounds like wisdom. It sounds like maturity. It sounds like something that protects you from disappointment. But what if that voice, the one telling you to shrink your dreams, question your instincts, settle for less, wasn't actually coming from your grounded self, but from a script written to keep you small? We call it realism, but often it's fear dressed as logic. It's inherited doubt dressed as being responsible. It's the Matrix, not the movie, but the mental architecture that teaches you how to survive in a system designed to suppress your soul. Let me give you an example. You get an idea, something expansive, a calling, a dream, and almost instantly, before the energy can even land fully, that voice kicks in. Be realistic. How would that even work? You're not qualified. That's not how life works. And you believe it. Not because it's true, but because it sounds familiar. And that familiarity, it's not truth. It's repetition, it's conditioning. Pause now. Feel this in your body. What happens when you say, "I want more"? Does your chest open or tighten? Does your breath expand or shallow? That's the real compass. Not the voice, but the vibration beneath it. You've been taught to distrust your expansiveness, to label your intuition as naivety, to confuse being grounded with being limited. But what if being realistic is actually the most dangerous form of self-abandonment? Because when you adopt someone else's version of reality, especially someone who was afraid, oppressed, or disconnected, you inherit their limits, and you wear them like a shield, even when the battle is over. We live in a society where skepticism is seen as intelligence, but there's a difference between critical thinking and self-sabotage. The Matrix doesn't need to chain you down. It just needs you to believe in your own ceiling. Let me bring this closer. Think about the last time you had a vision, something that made your heart race, your spirit stir, your body feel alive, and then the voice, the rationalizer, the planner, the cautious whisper saying, "Let's not get carried away." That's the moment, the fork in the road, the invitation to ask, is this caution coming from truth or trauma? We're going even deeper next. Because even the voice you think is your intuition, that quiet inner guidance, can be distorted when your system is built on fear. And if your inner voice has been trained to keep you safe rather than free, it's not intuition, it's programming. Let's unpack that together in the next chapter. The voice that sabotages your joy isn't your soul speaking. You feel a spark, a rise, a glimpse of lightness. For a moment, joy tries to come through, but then it gets cut, interrupted by a thought. A contraction, a voice that says, "Don't get too excited, be careful. This won't last." That voice, the one that strangles joy before it can bloom, isn't your soul. It's your wound, trying to protect itself from feeling too alive. Because once upon a time, joy wasn't safe. You laughed too loud and were shushed. You felt proud and were told not to brag. You wanted more and were told to be grateful for what you had. So joy became dangerous. It became a trigger. And your body began to associate expansion with exposure. Let me explain. The nervous system doesn't distinguish between emotional risk and physical threat. It remembers sensation, not logic. So if joy once led to rejection, punishment, or abandonment, your body learned, joy, danger, stay small, stay hidden, and here's the catch. Now, every time your soul tries to rise, your programming pulls you back. But you call it intuition. You say, something just doesn't feel right. You trust the contraction, you obey the fear, but what if the feeling isn't truth, but a trauma reflex? What if your gut instinct has been hijacked by old pain? You've seen this before. The moment things start going well, and you sabotage, you delay, you overthink, you withdraw. Not because you're broken, but because your system believes that joy comes with a cost. You don't lack motivation, you lack safety in joy. And when the soul doesn't feel safe to celebrate, it starts to shut down. But let's get real about this. The soul doesn't speak in fear. It speaks in resonance, in warmth, in inner expansion. It feels like truth, not tension. Your soul won't shame you. It won't limit you. It won't ask you to stay small in the name of being wise. That's not the voice of spirit. That's the voice of survival. So how do you tell the difference? How do you know when it's your soul guiding you and not your scars? We're going there next. In the next part, I'll share a simple yet powerful process to help you identify exactly where that voice is coming from, so you can begin to reclaim your frequency one choice at a time. The simple technique to discover whose voice it really is. Let's bring this down to earth, because recognizing a false voice in theory is one thing, but experiencing the difference in your body, that's when everything begins to shift. So here's a process to help you feel, identify, and separate the voice of your soul from the one that was installed. Start with a moment of stillness. Not perfection, just stillness. Enough to notice what's happening underneath the surface. Then ask, who's talking inside me right now? Is this voice guiding me with love or guarding me with fear? Now pay attention to the tone, not just the content. Does it feel warm, slow, supportive? Or does it rush, criticize, tighten your chest? Here's what most people miss. Truth has a texture. It relaxes you, even when it challenges you. But programming, it contracts you. It speeds up your breath. It scrambles your clarity. It uses urgency as a disguise for wisdom. Let's go one step deeper. Take a blank page, physical or digital. Write the exact sentence that the voice just said. Verbatim. Don't polish it. Maybe it says, "You'll never be enough. You're too much. You don't belong." They won't love you if you show this part. Now look at the sentence and ask, does this sound like me or someone else? Whose tone is this? Does it sound like an adult from your childhood? A belief from a religious system? A cultural norm that made you feel wrong for existing? You'll know, not by the logic of the answer, but by the emotion that rises when you name it. That rise, that discomfort, that's truth surfacing. That's memory vibrating. That's your soul nodding. Pause here, place your hand on your heart if it feels safe, and say gently inside or out loud, "Thank you for trying to protect me, but I don't need to be hidden anymore. I choose the voice that leads me home, not the one that keeps me small." Here's why this works, because your body remembers more than your mind. And every time you choose awareness over autopilot, you rewire something ancient, but don't rush to replace the voice. Hold space for the silence that comes after it. That silence is sacred. That's where your real voice begins to return. But before it returns fully, we need to clear one more layer. The interference that isn't yours, but you've absorbed. Because even when you start to recognize your own truth, the collective still whispers, and if you don't know how to spot it, you'll think it's you. That's exactly what we're unraveling in the next section. The silent factor that sabotages your inner voice, collective psychic noise. You're sitting alone, it's quiet, but your mind is not. Thoughts swirl, doubts creep in. You feel waves of fear, shame, hesitation, but nothing actually happened. Where is it coming from? Not every voice in your head is yours. Not every emotion in your body began with you, and not every thought that enters your space belongs to your field. There is something deeper at play here. Something invisible, but deeply real. A silent current running through the collective mind. And you, like every sensitive soul, are wired to feel it. Let me explain. We live in a shared psychic field, a collective mental atmosphere, constantly saturated with emotions, projections, expectations, judgments, most of them unconscious. Your nervous system is a receiver, your energetic field, porous. So without protection, without awareness, you absorb. You carry what isn't yours, and then punish yourself for feeling it. You've felt this before. Walking into a room and suddenly feeling heavy, scrolling social media and feeling unworthy, thinking of someone and suddenly feeling rejected, even though they didn't say a word. This is psychic noise, the residual emotion of others echoing through your mind as if it came from you. But what if the most confusing voice in your head never belonged to you to begin with? Pause here. Let that truth vibrate. What happens when your intuition gets distorted by interference? When your clarity becomes fogged by frequencies that were never aligned with your truth? You don't just lose touch with your voice. You start doubting it altogether. And here's the deeper cost. You live a life of reaction instead of resonance. You shape your choices around what you feel is real, not knowing that what you feel may be second-hand energy. So how do we protect ourselves from this silent sabotage? Let me offer a grounding process. Each morning, before entering the digital world, before conversations, before movement, pause. Ask, is this mine? Is this thought, this fear, this sadness truly from my own field? And then breathe. Visualize your field closing around you, not as a wall, but as a filter. Only truth enters, only resonance remains. Everything else, return to sender. This isn't about blaming the collective. It's about reclaiming your signal. Because the clearer your frequency becomes, the easier it is to recognize the imposters. And the more anchored you are in your own vibration, the less you get pulled into someone else's storm. We've come a long way. You've met the inner critic. You've challenged the voice of realism. You've felt the sabotage of joy. You've learned to identify what isn't yours. Now it's time to separate truth from illusion, even in the most subtle places. Because some of the deepest programming hides inside what we call wisdom. In the next section, we'll unpack the spiritual myths that sound like intuition, but are actually the final layer of control. The myths about intuition that keep you under control. You've heard it before. Trust your gut. Follow your intuition. Your body knows. And yes, your intuition is powerful. But here's a deeper question. What if your intuition has been trained to serve your programming instead of your soul? Not every inner signal is spiritual. Sometimes it's trauma disguised as wisdom. Sometimes it's fear speaking the language of intuition. Let me give you an example. You feel called to speak up, to express something true. But your gut says, now's not the time. It feels like intuitive restraint. But is it? Or is it the memory of being punished for your truth, now internalized as guidance? Here's the rupture we rarely talk about. When your nervous system has been conditioned by fear, your body's signals become distorted. Your intuition becomes hypervigilance. Your gut feeling becomes the echo of an old wound. And the worst part, you stop trusting your own truth, not because it's wrong, but because it's unfamiliar. Let's bring this into the body. Think of a time when you felt pulled towards something expansive, love, creativity, rest, honesty. And right before you moved toward it, something inside whispered, be careful. That moment of pause, was that intuition or protection? Did your chest open or contract? Did the voice make you feel empowered or ashamed? Real intuition isn't panic, it's clarity. Even when it warns, it doesn't shame. Even when it cautions, it doesn't paralyze. It's your soul's guidance, not your past's defense. But here's the trap. In spiritual circles, fear often hides under the cloak of sacred wisdom. People say things like, "This energy doesn't resonate," but really, they're just afraid to feel. They avoid, call it alignment. They judge, call it discernment. You've seen it before, you just didn't know how to name it. So how do you realign your intuitive compass? Start here. Ask not just what you feel, but how you feel when you feel it. Is there expansion or contraction? Softness or tension? Is this voice rooted in your wholeness or your wound? And remember, your soul won't rush you. It won't humiliate you. It won't ask you to hide. Real guidance feels like a door opening. Even if you're scared to walk through, it feels like truth, not control. You're not here to obey your fears. You're here to remember your knowing. Thank you for staying with me this far. Before we continue, I want to invite you to share in the comments. Have you ever caught yourself following a voice that wasn't really yours? Tell us, not just for you, but for the ones silently watching, who haven't found the courage yet. And if this message found you at the right moment, join our community, subscribe. There's so much more waiting for you inside the echoes of the path. This is a space where your voice matters. And your story, exactly as it is, has the power to help someone else return to themselves. And speaking of knowing, in the next chapter, we're going to go one step further. Because recognizing the false voices isn't enough. You must also choose the real one, even when it shakes you, even when it asks you to leave behind everything familiar. Let's walk into that choice together. You are allowed to silence voices that are not yours. You don't need permission to reclaim your voice. But I'll say it anyway, in case no one ever did. You're allowed to stop listening, to silence the voices that echo fear, guilt, shame, to walk away from scripts you never wrote, beliefs you never chose, rules you never agreed to. You are allowed to unsubscribe from control. There's a sacred kind of rebellion that happens, not on the outside, but inside your nervous system. When you stop reacting to the voice that says, "Play small," and start listening to the one that says, "Remember who you are." Let me give you something to feel into. Close your eyes if it feels right. Imagine every voice that told you who to be, standing around you. Parents, teachers, religious leaders, exes, peers, society, all speaking, all layering you with shoulds, with fears, with identities. Now, picture yourself reaching out and turning down the volume, one by one. Not with anger, not with resistance, with choice, with peace, with truth, because the real power is not in fighting them, it's in not feeding them. Your energy is sacred currency, and wherever you place your attention, you amplify. So ask yourself now, what do I want to amplify in my life? The voice of control or the voice of clarity? The vibration of fear or the resonance of my soul? Because here's what you need to hear. Your real voice has been here all along, under the noise, beneath the programming, waiting patiently. It's soft but steady. It doesn't beg for attention, it waits for your return. And every time you choose to listen to it, every time you pause before reacting, every time you speak from your own center, not from old scripts, you reclaim a piece of yourself. That is healing, that is remembering, that is freedom. Now let's land this together. Let's bring everything full circle. In the next chapter, I'll guide you through the closing message, not just to end this video, but to expand your energy into the world beyond it. You thought it was your voice. It was their control. There comes a moment in every journey when you stop asking, "What's wrong with me?" and start asking, "Who taught me to think this way?" That's the turning point, the moment when healing begins to outgrow survival. When remembering your truth becomes more important than repeating your programming, you were never broken, you were absorbing, you were adapting, you were doing what sensitive, intuitive souls have always done, shape-shifting to stay safe. But safety isn't freedom. Silence isn't peace. And playing small doesn't make you lovable, it makes you invisible. This video was never about just recognizing a voice. It was about recovering your right to speak from your soul. And that soul, yours, is whole, even if you forgot, even if it's been buried under 1,000 voices, even if you've spent years thinking your intuition was fear. You are not the voice that doubts. You are the one who hears it and chooses differently. You are the stillness beneath the noise, the truth beneath the trauma, the vibration beneath the script. So what now? Now, you listen again, but this time with new ears. You breathe again, but this time with awareness. You speak again, but this time from the center of who you really are. The world doesn't need more people repeating the same fearful thoughts. It needs you, raw, awake, resonant. If you made it to this part of the video, thank you for your energy, your attention, your courage. Thank you for walking this path with us. Tell us in the comment, what voice are you choosing to release today? What part of your soul are you ready to remember? And if this video moved something in you, like it, share it. Subscribe to our channel and join the community. This is only the beginning. There's more to explore, more to remember, more to reclaim. Your story matters here. Your voice belongs here. And your presence, just as it is powerful. Now breathe this in. You are not at the mercy of the external world. You are the field that transforms what vibrates around you. Your frequency is a key. Your emotions are messages. And your voice, once truly yours again, is a vibration that shifts everything it touches. This isn't the end, it's the echo of your return. We'll meet again in the next video, in the next memory, in the next breath of truth. Until then, stay awake, stay soft, stay you. Echoes of the path.